assuming that the Faucis of the world take 20 or 30 or 40 years to get to where Bass is right now, that'll be your Epstein moment.
Speaking of healthcare and, how we view it, this is the sticky Epstein didn't kill himself segment that we will decide later whether or not you're seeing us on YouTube or whether or not I'm fading into the distance as I'm speaking.
Yes, today what we have is an opinion piece published in Newsweek from a Kevin Bass, who at the writing publication of this article, which was on January 30th of this year, 2023, his little bio there at the top says MS, MD/PhD student in medical school. So not a doctor yet, but on that path. And the opinion piece is titled, "It's time for the scientific community to admit we were wrong about COVID and it costs lives." And when I read that article, I'm like, okay, that title. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty strongly worded title. Let's see if we might get that apology that David and I alluded to all throughout COVID that we thought we'd never get.
I still wait.
And if you'll remember a few episodes back, probably 10 or so episodes ago, we had the article demanding amnesty, right, for those who wanted to push all the COVID policies.
I'm sure the Nazis would have loved to do that at the end. Hey, let's let bygones be bygones. Let's not talk about the things that led to all this mass murder. I went Manichaeanism with a joke. Manichaeanistic.
No, you violated Godwin's law.
And
brought the Nazis. Like,
the Nazis. It's always those little rascals that you bring up.
And I don't recall David's response, but mine may have gotten a little heated during that article where I was like, how dare you people say,
how dare you?
Not only should you get amnesty, but, the only reason that our side was right whenever we were was just luck, and that we had no basis to our opinions and
logic
and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those like you smack your little brother and it's like, go apologize to him, and you're like, I'm sorry you made me hit.
I'm sorry you're such a pussy that's crying. That mom heard you. I told you to shut up, that you're fine. It's gonna be fine. And then all of a sudden you told on me. I'm sorry you're such a little bastard. And I'm going to hit you again when mom's not watching, by the way.
That's exactly how the cultists will react if they let them off.
That's exactly how humans act.
But in more of a silver lining, cheerier note on the whole COVID topic, I want to give Kevin Bass and this opinion piece the full credit that it deserves, because I'm not going to say that he speaks for everybody in the COVID regime. I'm not going to collectivize his apology for it. I'm going to give him credit and him alone for it. And as we said all throughout COVID, if we ever did get an honest, sincere apology, we would be perfectly willing and ready to welcome you back into our good graces, for whatever that's worth to any of you, with open arms, because human beings do make mistakes. And although I can be very cynical about whether or not what people like Fauci and stuff were making in terms of them being mistakes, I think a lot of people, and Kevin Bass's tone in this opinion piece is the being swept up in the fear, the uncertainty of this new novel virus that none of us had ever heard of, can lead someone to some poor opinions that have negative consequences. But there's always room for grace and forgiveness. And Kevin Bass certainly deserves it. And so does anybody else who, like him at the time, supported a bunch of these COVID policies, but is now apologizing and is realizing the damage that was done, which, again, we were talking about all throughout COVID.
May I approach the bench?
Yes.
Okay, I'm approaching. Here's my approach. Okay, I was just going to say, for interest of keeping this available on YouTube, can we call the 19 CC's Pizza so we don't say,
we can say the word.
You can say the word?
We just can't make any claims about
really trying to support
safety,
because I know they're really going through a tough time right now.
Yeah. I will tell you this. If we read verbatim this opinion piece, just read it to the audience, we would be canceled.
First of all,
we would that would get us nuked on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
But so we're not going to go into all the things he said. We encourage you to go read the article for yourself, because it is a great article, and this is exactly the type of person who deserves forgiveness.
Pour
And I
yourself
think
a
there's
nice
a lot
little
more than just him out there, but
glass of wine.
he gets the credit for being one of the first.
Cozy up next to the fire and just read this wonderful piece.
Yeah.
It makes you feel real good and warm inside.
Yeah.
Dane,
So
without further ado,
I am just going to read the first paragraph and nothing more, because this just shows you about where he was during the time of COVID himself. He says, quote, "As a medical student and researcher, I staunchly supported the efforts of the public health authorities when it came to COVID-19. I believed that the authorities responded to the largest public health crisis of our lives with compassion, diligence, and scientific expertise. I was with them when they called for lockdowns, vaccines, and boosters. I was wrong. We in the scientific community were wrong, and it cost lives."
his words, not ours.
So that's what Kevin Bass had to say. And to really, I think most of you probably already know this, but I really want to, I can't be, generous enough with my praise of him, because you got to understand where he is in his medical career, right? He's a medical student. He's just getting ready to go out into the world, hopefully, and get a job that hopefully pays high enough to pay him back for all of the student debt that he's going to, assuming he had, he didn't get a full ride.
This.
And he's doing this. He's going against the establishment. That is, in no uncertain terms, if I could think of a better, stronger word than courageous, I would use that to apply here, because he is really, really putting his neck on the chopping block by writing something like this.
Nick, nameless, faceless guy. Can you look up the clip from Dodgeball where he blinds himself and it's Jason Bateman? He's like, apparently he's blinded himself.
Yeah,
He will not be able to see very well, Cotton. It's a bold strategy. Let's see if it pays off for him. Balls of steel.
Yeah.
To do that right before he's exiting to like, hey, you want to hire me? He's like,
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to be on the next CDC tribunal, or
when you had highly, highly accomplished with decades of experience doctors, for example, like McCullough, who was Dr. Peter McCullough, who was threatened with getting his license taken away as one of the most published authors in his field for having the quote unquote wrong opinion throughout this whole thing. When they're talking about taking away a license of a guy who's already been practicing in good standing in medicine for decades, and you're just going to be a fresh out of medical school student, like, good luck.
It's almost like a
God bless you.
peppy, upstart young podcast that is willing to go the places that they're not supposed to go
To give you the truth.
and delve into the topics that even the podfather Joseph A. Rogan himself gets almost canceled for. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but courageous does come to mind.
So I get, so the reason why this is an Epstein moment, and like I said, it's Epstein light, right? Because I'm not going
slightly murder.
I'm not going to say that Bass,
murder without the calories.
Bass does not speak for the entire public health establishment. He doesn't speak for Fauci and Birx and Biden. Well, not that he's public health establishment, but you get the idea. He's not speaking for Walensky or anything else like that. But he, assuming his view, his opinion becomes the dominant opinion with public health, with the public health establishment, and they do issue a robust and sincere apology like this, what would make it that Epstein-ish in sort of the United States historical example is it's always, to use Trump's words, take the guns first, due process later, right? The U.S. government always does these really terrible, shitty things. And then when the documents get declassified 30, 40 years later, they're like whoopsie daisies, right? All of the conspiracy theories that
Minus the daisies.
that became conspiracy fact,
Fucking whoops. I'm so sorry you couldn't take 5 fucking shots, you pussy. Shit, what have I just done?
That's usually what they do is they screw you over now, and then they apologize way too late when it doesn't matter. That's not what Bass has done here. He's apologized in a timely manner where it does matter. And hopefully it's just one more voice shifting the conversation in that direction, and good on him for that. But assuming that the Faucis of the world take 20 or 30 or 40 years to get to where Bass is right now, that'll be your Epstein moment. That'll be the Epstein moment when the apology comes way too late, means nothing, and
And all the people
doesn't give them the forgiveness that Bass currently deserves.
and all the people that you could hold accountable are Wilson's dead.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get reparations from their families. Maybe the wealth that they accrued from all these decisions that fucked the rest of us over. Maybe that's the proper reparations that we should be looking
Since we're
for.
talking about reparations.
I mean, since we're just handing out fucking checks, why stop there,
Yeah.
I mean, smite somebody who deserves it for once,
Right. So anyway, again, we won't quote any more from this article. We encourage you to read it. You will probably be personally canceled by anybody who loves you simply for reading it, but we think that the price is worth it.
We love you.
To
We won't
quote,
cancel you.
what's her face? The
What's that dumb
I think the first ever female Secretary of State under Clinton was Madeleine Albright.
Oh, Straddling Madeline?
She was, I don't know if you remember this, but early 90s or mid 90s, she was questioned on 60 Minutes about, your interventions into Iraq or whatever, it costs like 1 million lives. What do you think about that? And she goes, you know what? We think at the end of the day, the price was worth it. So
I bet you do.
So to quote,
Some of those million might not, but you do.
so to quote Madeleine Albright in a slightly happier tone, if you lose some family and friends for reading Kevin Bass's
what it's
apology
translated to?
and liking it and or sharing it with them, we think the loss of those friends or family members is worth it.
It sounded a lot like Madeline said, we think it was worth it. What she really said was, fuck them.